In 538 AD, Byzantine soldiers dragged screaming men from their homes in Constantinople. Their crime, being gay; their punishment, forced castration ordered by Emperor Justinian himself. But that's not even the worst part. What I'm about to reveal will make you question everything you thought you knew about medieval justice. Because Justinian didn't just criminalize homosexuality, he turned the entire church into his personal execution squad. And the methods they used were so barbaric that even hardened historians struggle to describe them. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this story was deliberately buried for over 1,400 years, and how these ancient laws shaped persecution that lasted until the 1960s. But before we dive into this dark chapter that changed Western civilization forever, hit that subscribe button, because what comes next will challenge everything you believe about religious tolerance. I'm going to expose 3 shocking truths. First, the castration law that terrorized an empire. Second, how bishops became state executioners. And third, the secret underground network that somehow survived it all. Trust me, you need to hear this complete story. Picture this: it's 527 AD, and the Byzantine Empire controls more territory than Rome ever did. Justinian the Great sits on the throne, and he's about to revolutionize law forever with his famous legal code, the Corpus Juris Civilis. This wasn't just any legal reform. This was the foundation of Western law as we know it. Courts across Europe would use Justinian's code for the next 1,000 years. Universities still teach it today. But here's what they don't tell you in law school. Hidden within these groundbreaking legal reforms were 3 specific laws targeting gay men. 3 laws that would unleash a reign of terror so systematic, so brutal, that it makes the Spanish Inquisition look merciful by comparison. And here's the twisted genius of it all: Justinian didn't just criminalize homosexuality. Anyone could do that. No, he weaponized Christianity itself, turning bishops into judges, priests into executioners, and the church into his personal torture machine. But here's what nobody tells you about this story. While thousands died in agony, a secret network was operating right under the emperor's nose. A network so sophisticated that it survived for centuries, protecting gay men through coded language, hidden signals, and underground safe houses. You think you know how dark history can get? These 3 laws changed everything. But the third one, the earthquake conspiracy, will absolutely blow your mind. March 15th, 538 AD. It's barely dawn when the imperial guards start their raids across Constantinople. They're hunting for sodomites, Justinian's term for gay men, and they have orders that will make your stomach turn. Novella 77, that's the official name of the law that changed everything. Let me read you the actual text. Translated from Latin: "Those who dare to commit the unspeakable sin against nature shall be punished by castration and public exhibition of their shame." But here's what nobody tells you: this wasn't just about punishment. This was about terror. Imagine you're a gay man in 538 Constantinople. One moment you're living your life, the next you're being dragged to the city center where crowds gather to watch as the state-appointed executioner approaches with a red-hot iron. No trial, no appeals, just screaming. The Byzantine historian John Malalas recorded what happened next, and his account is absolutely chilling. He writes, "More than 50 men were seized in a single day. The streets ran with blood and echoed with screams that could be heard from the palace walls." But Constantinople was just the beginning. Within weeks, the law spread across the entire empire. From Syria to Sicily, from Egypt to the Balkans, gay men were being rounded up like animals. Here's the part that will haunt you: many victims didn't die quickly. Medieval castration was deliberately designed to maximize suffering. They used rusty tools, refused medical care, and forced families to watch. The mortality rate: nearly 80% died within days from infection or blood loss. But here's what's truly terrifying: Justinian was just getting started. Because while his soldiers were busy with their castration spree, he was secretly meeting with church bishops to plan something even more diabolical. Don't click away yet, because what the church did next makes castration look like mercy. Picture this: it's Sunday morning, 539 AD. You're sitting in church, listening to the bishop's sermon. But instead of preaching about love and forgiveness, he's explaining why burning gay men alive is God's will. This is where Justinian's genius turned absolutely diabolical. He didn't just create laws, he convinced the church that enforcing them was a holy duty. And once he did that, there was no limit to the cruelty. The historian Evagrius Scholasticus documented what happened next, and his account reads like a horror novel. He describes bishops personally conducting trials where the only evidence needed was an accusation. No witnesses, no proof, just someone pointing and saying, "He's one of them." But here's what nobody tells you about these church trials. They weren't about justice. They were about spectacle. Bishops discovered that public executions drew massive crowds, and massive crowds meant massive donations. Let me paint you a picture of what these executions looked like. The condemned man is tied to a wooden post in the city center. The bishop reads his crimes to the crowd. Then comes the part that still makes historians sick to their stomachs. They didn't just burn them quickly. Oh no, that would be too merciful. They used green wood that burned slowly, creating maximum smoke and prolonging the agony. The crowds cheered, children watched, vendors sold food. And here's the part that proves this was never about morality. Church records show that bishops charged admission to these executions. Front row seats cost extra. They were literally profiting from torture. Within 2 years, every major city in the Byzantine Empire had its own ecclesiastical execution ground. Bishops competed to see who could stage the most elaborate burnings. It became a twisted form of entertainment. But while the church was busy turning murder into a religious ceremony, something extraordinary was happening in the shadows. A network of gay men had figured out how to survive under the most oppressive regime in history. And their methods were absolutely ingenious. Imagine you're gay in Byzantine Constantinople and death squads are hunting you. Where do you hide? How do you find others like you? How do you even survive? The answer will blow your mind. They created an entire underground language, symbols carved into bathhouse walls that looked like random scratches to soldiers but contained life-saving information to those who knew how to read them. A circle with a line meant safe house nearby. A triangle meant informant present, stay away. But that's just the beginning. Recent archaeological discoveries have revealed that gay men created a network so sophisticated that it operated for centuries right under the church's nose. They built secret tunnels connecting safe houses across Constantinople. They developed code words that let them identify each other in public markets. They even had a warning system using church bells. Certain patterns meant raids were coming. The historian Procopius reveals the most shocking part in his secret history. He writes about aristocratic women who ran protection rings, hiding gay men in their palaces and bribing officials to look the other way. These weren't just random acts of kindness. This was organized resistance. Wealthy women like Empress Theodora, yes, Justinian's own wife, secretly funded safe houses while her husband was ordering mass executions. Think about the courage that took. Imagine knowing that discovery meant not just death, but the worst possible death, burned alive in front of thousands of cheering spectators. Yet they did it anyway. But here's what's truly incredible. This network wasn't just about survival. They preserved gay culture, literature, and art through the darkest period in Western history. Poems, love letters, philosophical treatises, all hidden in secret archives. I'm holding translations of love poems written by gay men during Justinian's reign. They're beautiful, heartbreaking, and absolutely forbidden. The penalty for owning them was death. But while this underground resistance was saving lives and preserving culture, Emperor Justinian was planning his most twisted law yet. A law so insane that it would blame gay men for natural disasters. Don't scroll away. The earthquake conspiracy will absolutely destroy everything you thought you knew about medieval logic. October 7th, 542 AD. A massive earthquake rocks Constantinople, killing thousands and destroying half the city. Buildings collapse. Families are buried alive. The imperial palace itself cracks down the middle. So naturally, Emperor Justinian blames gay men. I'm not making this up. Novella 141, written immediately after the earthquake, officially declares that the unspeakable sin of sodomy has angered God Almighty, who punishes our empire with earthquakes, plagues, and disasters. Let that sink in. The emperor of the most powerful empire on earth just blamed gay people for tectonic plate movement. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. Justinian didn't just blame them, he ordered a final solution. Every gay man in the empire was to be found and executed within 1 year, because apparently God wouldn't stop the earthquakes until they were all dead. The orders went out immediately: search every house, question every citizen, leave no stone unturned. The death toll was staggering. Historians estimate over 1,000 executions in just 6 months. Recent archaeological digs have uncovered mass graves from this period. Bodies piled on top of each other, some still bearing evidence of torture. It was systematic genocide disguised as earthquake prevention. But here's what nobody expected: the earthquakes kept happening. Because, shocking news, killing gay people doesn't actually affect geological activity. Who could have predicted that? When another massive earthquake hit in February 543, even Justinian's supporters started questioning his logic. Maybe, just maybe, gay men weren't controlling the earth's crust from beyond the grave. Then came the real disaster, the plague of Justinian. By 542, bubonic plague was killing 10,000 people per day in Constantinople. Suddenly, chasing gay men seemed less important than avoiding death by disease. The irony is perfect. Justinian spent 4 years trying to eliminate gay men to stop natural disasters. Then an actual natural disaster, the plague, killed more people than all his persecutions combined and finally ended his anti-gay crusade. But the damage was already done. These Byzantine laws became the foundation for anti-gay persecution across medieval Europe. From England to Spain, from France to Germany, Justinian's legal code was copied word for word. The Castration Decree, the church execution law, even the earthquake conspiracy. For the next 1,400 years, gay men across the Western world would face torture, execution, and systematic persecution, all because one Byzantine emperor decided they controlled earthquakes. Here's what will shock you most: Justinian's anti-gay laws weren't fully repealed in some countries until the 1960s. Think about that. Laws written by a man who blamed earthquakes on gay people were still being enforced when your grandparents were young adults. But here's what Justinian never understood: you can't legislate people out of existence. Despite 1,400 years of persecution, despite torture and execution and systematic oppression, gay people survived. They preserved their culture, their stories, their humanity. Every year, archaeologists discover more evidence of the underground resistance that started in Byzantine Constantinople. Love letters hidden in walls, coded artwork in forgotten churches, entire libraries of forbidden literature. They thought they could erase a people from history. Instead, they just forced them to become incredibly good at hiding. But here's my question for you: should modern historians teach the complete truth about religious persecution, even when it makes us uncomfortable? Because most textbooks still skip over these details, sanitizing medieval history to avoid difficult conversations. I believe we have a responsibility to remember these stories, not to assign blame to modern religious people, but to understand how easily fear can be weaponized and how quickly civilization can turn barbaric. What do you think? Should we teach the brutal truth about historical persecution, or is there value in keeping some stories buried? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this story as fascinating and horrifying as I did, make sure you're subscribed, because next week, I'm uncovering the secret gay codes hidden in medieval cathedral architecture that church officials are still trying to suppress today. The past isn't as simple as they taught you in school, and the truth is always more complicated than the sanitized version. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.